case if you have come to this training for the first time, this is the AZ204 track, and this one is specifically meant for developer who wants to work on Azure. So who wants to code on Azure, who wants to host MVC core, who wants to use Azure tables, who wants to develop an application and put on Azure and so on, right? And again, like today is not really the first lecture of this class. We already had the lectures. We definitely repeat these lectures, but it's going to be very difficult to repeat 20 lectures. So I would suggest that the AZ204, all the recordings is all out there. So you can see all that out there. So if you look at what is the course concentrating on, it is a dev track, right? So like how to use PowerShell and create a VM. If you have ASP.NET Core, how to enable diagnostics on it. If you check in GitHub, how can you do CI/CD? Blob, grid, events, function apps, how to use it. MSMQ and service bus, which is good, which is bad, when to use, and so on, right? Some case studies around dynamic acceleration. So you can go and you can use CDN content network, then how do you do acceleration? Azure API, very important one. Azure API has lots of question, APIM. You have a WCF at the background, you have web API at the background, you have a lot of APIs lying in your company, and you want to say, okay, I want to go and put Active Directory on everyone, security. I want to go and enable some security. I want to go and enable some token, JWT token, right? So on the APIs, you can have an API management, right? And remember, yesterday I showed you it is a very costly service, and OpenID and Active Directory, telemetry, scale set, Azure front door service, compression, so a lot of things out there. I have to put some of them. I have to actually put down what is out there. And today is 21st lecture. So I would say, guys, please go and watch that. But today's lecture, I'm concentrating on this topic, which I really missed out. I know that this was the first lecture which I should have been taken, but I missed it out because it was said on the forums that Docker is not a part of AZ204, which I was wrong, because in the syllabus, what they did is they said that only Kubernetes is out of scope, which is my mistake, right? And I read only the forum messages. I read only some of the messages from the MVPs, but actually a lot of our students, got questions around Docker. They got questions around ACR, Azure Container Registry, and students were a bit like upset saying that, Shiv, we got 4 questions around this, right? So today what I'll do is I'll talk about what is Docker. I will go to Azure. I will use a VM. I will create a Docker image, right? Not today, because I don't know today I'll be able to not complete this. I will take this image and I will publish it to Azure Container Registry. This is for the next lecture, not today, guys. And from the container registry, I will go and create an Azure container instance, because just to explain Docker to you will take me like 1 hour to install. And this, everything I'm going to go and do from scratch. Even if it takes an hour, I'm going to go and do it. You will see every bit of how to go and host an ASP.NET Core on Docker. So my goal for today's session is, this is what the goal is. ASP.NET Core. You can put MVC5 also if you want, right? But I'm going to take ASP.NET Core 3.1 and publish that thing in Docker, right? And the VM, I will take it on Azure, right? So I will build that on Azure and I will show everything on Azure, right? So that is the goal. And then we will go through one of the questions, so here, let me open up the Word document as well. So ACR, guys, will take for the next lecture. I will see that if I can plan one of the lectures in between where I can take ACR, right? So let me check that part. So here are all the questions. I have listed all the questions, which I've covered in the class till now. So if anybody wants this document, it is all out there. And today is the 32nd question, which I will cover. You plan to create this, that runs on ASP.NET Core. You have to set up a script. What should you do? Should you run PowerShell? So, but before you can attempt this question, you have to know about Docker, right? So I want to go and ask everyone out here that what have you heard about Docker? Any one of you guys over here has worked with Docker or created a container and hosted it and hosted an MVC core? Let me know. If no, then just say no or say first time. So let me know, like anyone out here who has, or at least watch my video of Docker. We have a Docker with Azure out there. Anybody has watched that video? I'm not sure. That is also okay to start with. So I see 2 no's, 3 no's. Yeah, Anyone else out here who can just say yes? Must be, because with that I'll come to know that I have to start, right? Yeah, so one is basic understanding but not work, basic understanding but not work. So Ankit, I know the definition is good, but I can see yes from Rohit out there. So that's good to see. But Rohit, I can see a lot of people are saying no, and I'm saying actual working, actual hosting, right? I can see Subin has said yes, and Venkata has said yes, right? Okay, guys. So let me. I can see a lot of no's out here. So let me do this, and let me go and create a Docker image. But I'll be using Azure for it, Azure Virtual Machine for it, and very specific. You know, you must have seen examples of Docker on Linux. I will show an example of Docker with Windows, because I know that we are Windows guys. We love Windows Server, right? So everything will be on Windows, right? So I'm going to go here. I'll go to my portal. Let us start. Okay. What I will do first is I will just go ahead and first create a virtual machine. Then I will go and explain the concepts of Docker, because you know that installation takes quite a time, guys. It takes quite a time. So I'm going to go here and create a resource group so that I can delete this later on. So I'll just go and create a resource group out here, and let us say add, and we'll say this is Docker on Azure, so that we can delete this later on, right? And say review and create it. Good, right? In this, I will go and I will add a virtual machine. So let me take an add on virtual machine. As I've said that I really want it to be very, very Windows specific. You can see all the examples online are of Linux, but I'm not going to take Linux for now. Right, I see a virtual machine out here, dev3. Oh, let me delete this. That DV3 virtual machine. Why is it there? Let me see. Okay, no. Okay, so I'm going to go and create a virtual machine. Now, definitely, whenever you are installing Docker, one very important point to note is that do not use Windows 10, Windows 7. It does not work. I know that there are workaround. People try it out. You need to have a proper server edition because it uses Hyper-V, right? So I'll come to the basics of Docker, everyone. Don't worry. But I just want to make sure that I just create the virtual machines and keep. So Docker on Azure, I will put it out here. And let us create this virtual machine, which we will say Windows Server 1, 2, 3. We will not select Ubuntu. We will not select this. Let's go and select nice 2019 data center, right? So, and now this is the most important part. Docker uses virtualization techniques. So Docker uses Hyper-V and virtualization techniques. Azure by itself is virtualized. So when you actually go and create a virtual machine, it actually gets created. It's a virtual machine. It is not the actual hardware. And for Hyper-V and etc., you need really Hyper-V to be enabled on the VM level, right? So you can't use a small size VM here to see the demonstration. Means if you use like DS1 or V2, or if you use this burst VM V21 or these VMs, right, which are like normal VMs, right? This one, you won't be able to enable Hyper-V. And if you want to do that, then it is a lot of hard work, which I don't like actually. So Hyper-V on Azure, then you need to go and enable nested virtualization in Azure VM. And I really don't want to get into that. If you can just see when you say nested means you have a VM. So VM inside that you will create a VM with Hyper-V. Then you start doing install Windows feature. You start making a NAT. You do so many nonsense out here. It's too much configuration. So I don't want to really go into this and start teaching you networking out there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'll make it easy for everyone. I will select a kind of a higher end series, and I will select this D2 series. D2 series virtual machines they support Hyper-V, right? So I know that they are costly, but they do support even the DS3 series. This one also support it, right? So must be I can take the DS3 series. Remember, you can see that the per month cost is like 24,000. But remember that I'm going to go and do it for an hour, so it will be like 12 rupees or 20 rupees. So we don't have to worry about the cost at this moment for learning purpose, right? So let me take up DS3 DS3, I think so. Let me take up that. No, let me take up from here. Let me take up from here. Let me take up D2 SV4. Okay, I can take up this one. D2 series, right? Okay. So there it is. If you see the price, remember that price is per month, but don't worry, the per hour price will be less, right? So this one here, I will go and I will create a user into this VM. I'll just say Shiv and password. And yeah, review and create. Just see that the cost is less, right? Let me see that. And this is the best way to learn Docker and other technologies, because think about it. 13 rupees per hour. So I think it's okay. So my maximum I will get like 26 rupees or 40 rupees. It's okay. In our machine to install Docker, for example, you guys must be on Windows 7 or you must be on Windows 8, right? So where to get a Windows 2019 server, how to get a so much big machine, how to get internet and so on. So just use Azure. So get like you want to learn Linux, what to do, like go ahead, create a VM, start learning Linux. And if you really want to go very cheaper, if you say that no, like sir, I don't have like even 13 rupees also, then go to Alibaba. Alibaba is I know that I don't want to promote here Chinese products, but Alibaba is very cheaper in terms of virtual machines out there, like 1 rupee and 2 rupees. So you can go and hire a 2019 server data center and do things out there, right? Start using Azure Cloud, or you can use Amazon as well. Amazon cost and Azure cost are pretty much same, right? But nowadays I find like Alibaba is becoming very cheaper, right? So there are other cloud machines out there, clouds solution out there. At least you can get the VM, get Visual Studio inside it and start learning, right? So I have this virtual machine out here. It is all out here. Let me connect to it. RDP. Because the virtual machine, oh, this one is deleting. I'm sorry, that's deleting. Okay, this is my virtual machine. It is getting created. Okay, now guys, until this virtual machine connects, right? Let us talk about why do we need Docker, right? So let me start here. Also, very quickly, guys, if you're doing Docker, right, one of the things you should do is attend my Tuesday trainings of microservice, because microservices and Docker, they go really, really hand to hand, right? But I'll not talk about microservice out here, but let me talk about what Docker does, right? Docker, does, so here it is. Let me start with microservice must be, I know that I don't want to get into things, but let me start with microservice. Think about it that you have developed an application one. This is using MVC Core and SQL Server. You have used an application 2, which uses Java and Oracle, right? Let's say both of these applications are built out here, right? Now you want to go and host this into your computer, right? But those, these two applications out here, you don't want to really buy a 2 new hardware. You want to host on one machine because must be only 4 or 5 users are using it. So you think about virtualization. You think about Hyper-V, right? So what you do is that you go ahead and you say, okay, here is my hardware, right? And inside this hardware, I will go and I will create a VM, right? A VM, which is Windows OS must be, and install SQL Server inside it, right? I will have IIS, everything configured here. Then I will go and I will create a Java VM, right? Which will have Linux must be installed it and do things out here, right? But what happens in virtualization is it actually makes a full physical copy of the operating system. So this is your host. Host means the hardware. So here you have already you have an operating system out here. You have so many huge layers on which everything runs, right? Now, again, you have a full OS copy out here. This also you have a full OS copy with all the taskbar and toolbar and desktop unnecessarily, right? That's where Docker comes into picture. Docker says that let us not go and create a full copy of the OS. What do you need? Like you need only IIS. For example, first thing, what does Windows needs to run? Windows does not read the really taskbar and etc. You can have, the Windows Compact, which just needs the basic things. So he takes the necessary binary of Windows. And you want what, like IIS, he just installs IIS. You want SQL Server, just installs SQL Server. And he creates a very lightweight copy. So in this case, the full copy of the OS is not created. So in this case of when you use Docker, right? In Docker, what happens? So this is your OS. host OS, I will say. So you will create one container. This is termed as a container based technology, right? So Docker is one of them, and there are other people also who provide container based. So what it does is, now here, this layer out here of the operating system is the only the minimum binaries what is needed to run the OS. This one here, the minimum binary which is running the OS. So it becomes more lightweight as compared to virtual machines. The previously when I talked about virtualization, it was making a full copy, right? So that's what Docker is. Now what I can do, I can just, this is a minimum OS, very lightweight. Just I can put IIS, just put SQL Server, my MVC core application, and start accessing it outside, right? And I can use extreme good use of my hardware, right? And think about it, this also becomes a very valid infrastructure for microservices. In microservices, what happens? Somebody creates an application in Java and he wants to talk to .NET. So you have, remember, application domain. Remember the Tuesday class in case you are attending it. So in that case, I just one machine, you put it all there and they talk through queues must be. And the queues can be in the host machine. So must be his own microservice talking with the other microservice, and the queues is into one host machine, or must be, if you really want, you can also go and containerize this as well, right? So that's what Docker is. Docker is a lightweight container. It does not make a full copy like your virtual machines. It makes almost like 20%, 80% less, means only 20% of the OS binaries are running, right? So that is what is Docker. So guys, any questions you can put down on the chat. I will keep answering it. Do we need to learn Linux to understand Docker? No, you don't have to. That's why today's demo is what I'm not going to use Linux, right? I can understand the love for Windows, and I also love Windows, right? So I'm not going to use Linux, right? Again, a question from Amit sir here. Sir, is VM really required for Docker? Can't we use container instance serverless? Yeah, well, but you will need a Hyper-V. So, you can use the container instances, what is there, given by Azure, but then you won't know how to build from scratch. Today, what I'm going to show out here is that this is not for Azure I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you this, that if you have a server of Windows 2019, locally, you can build Docker on that and start installing it. Here, the VM I've selected, just because I don't want to go and invest in hardware, right? So today, my demo here, you should think about that. This is not really from the Azure perspective. This is, taking a Windows server and installing Docker and installing MVC core in that. That's what this demo is all about, right? I've just used Azure for the VM, nothing else, right? So I'll just connect out here with the RDP. Let me go and download the RDP file. So I'll connect to my Windows server. Remember, guys, today's demo is not really Azure on Docker. There is nothing called Azure on Docker. I know that there are ready-made containers out there, but I would like to go and create my own container saying that I want MVC core, I want MVC 5, I want SQL Server 2012, I want to configure it myself, right? So the point of today's demo is more related to how to do it yourself manually, right? Okay. And and if you look at the questions, the exam questions out there, they are related to Docker configuration file. So for that, you have to at least once do it manually. Now, very quickly, guys, one of the biggest pain points of working on Azure VMs is it does not install by default Chrome browser, and my life does not start without Chrome. I cannot browse using Internet Explorer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I will just copy the Chrome setup out there. So I have this Chrome setup somewhere here, right? So where is my Chrome setup? Yeah, that one. I'm going to go and copy this and install Chrome on my virtual machine. I can't really work with Internet Explorer, and not even with Edge. Something stops me psychologically. So I will go and I will just paste it out here. You can just download it into your local computer and just paste it, and I will install it. And then by using Chrome, I will install Docker, right? So, these are some of the things when you work on Azure VMs, you need to really do it yourself. So let's go and install it. Okay. So there it is going, it's installing. If you have any questions, guys, you can put down in the chat. Also, side by side, I will, yes, Rohit, definitely, I'm going to go and delete it. I know. Yeah, Docker also has versions. I will show that, right? Docker also has versions. I will show that. Right. Yes. Okay. Until this is installed out here, what I will also do is PC is hanging. Okay, what I will do is I'll go and I've created a Visual Studio MVC Core application here called as Web Application 12. So I said File, New MVC Core, and I'm opening this application. It's a damn simple MVC Core application, which I have here. And this is what I intend to host on the Docker, the Docker instance on which I'm going to go and create it, right? So again, I'm opening that application as well, right? Okay, my Chrome has started out here. So guys, I will do parallel things so that I can complete this demo in 1 hour, right? It's a kind of a big demo. But you know what? I wanted to show you that, like for example, if somebody wants to do this demo at their home, right? Then he should know he has to select D3. He should know he has to install Chrome, right? So the goal of this demo also is to see that you can also go and do hands-on practice if you want to do it, right? So like Docker for Windows, absolutely. I am for Windows today. So people who are looking for Docker for Linux, I'm sorry, this demo is not related to Linux, but in Linux, it would be much more easier, believe me. Windows Docker support is not, now it has become good in the last 2 years, but previously it was bad. So here it is, we have Docker Hub. So I'm going to go and download this from Docker Hub, and let's download it and keep it on our, so get Docker desktop for Windows. I'll get it and let it start installing, right? Okay, so as this is happening here, let's see. 4455 MB. I'm going to do things in parallel now. Explain you the source code, explain you the Docker, and also look at the messages so that we do things parallelly and we don't waste time, right? Because just looking at installation is boring. But at least let me start the Docker installation, and then let me go back to our MVC Core application and then show this demo, right? So very quickly, here is the Docker thing. It is installed out here. Okay, anything? You will register in Azure registry, absolutely. So I'll come to that. Yes, it is possible to move the Docker images. Docker images are a physical file, you can move them. We will show that. So here it is. I've said double click on the Docker desktop. It is downloading the packages and it is going to go and install it. So let it install it. Let it install it, and let me go back to here because the installation will take time. So here is my MVC Core application. I have done no coding in this. Like if you run this, this is nothing, your old MVC Core application which runs and shows you that hello world and some menu bar out there. So absolutely nothing in this MVC Core application which I have coded. I just said file new project and I created the MVC Core application. So no coding as such, no SQL server, nothing at this moment, right? Very, very simple. Right, so let me just show it, that one out there. This, let me place it here so that, okay. Suddenly my machine becomes slow. Okay, let me also see. Okay, you can see now. When the Docker starts installing, it says that enable Hyper-V. That is the first thing. If your Hyper-V is not enabled, if your OS is not supporting virtualization, Docker cannot do anything. The Docker containers works, completely on virtualization, right? So I'm going to go and say okay out here, right? Very quickly, let me look at my. Okay, right. So there it is. It is installing. I hope that D3 series supports virtual. So here it is, web application, welcome, all that, right? So now, how does this thing work, Docker thing work, right? So first thing, so you can have an application which is MVC Core. It will say that it needs SQL Server. You can say that it needs a lot of other things, right? So here it is. There are 3 steps actually to it. First, from whatever is your application, right? By looking at you need SQL Server, you need IIS, you need what, right? Your application will dictate that first, right? So for that, we have a Docker file. So in this Docker file, you define that what you need. You need an IIS, you need .NET 3.1, you need this, all this, right? So from this Docker file, he creates first thing something called as an image. Remember, this image is not a real virtual machine. It is an image. right? So this is a physical file, a very simple physical file, an image. From this image now you can say, now go ahead and create a running application. So here you will say, okay, this image, let us say it's by looking at the Docker file, you will say you need MVC5, you need this .NET this, you need IIS, you need SQL Server. And looking at this, he goes ahead, he creates a container. So this is your host machine, right? From this image, he goes, he creates a container which runs on some 8080 port. In that he installs IIS, in that he installs MVC5 installs, and then you have a running container. So this is the actual container. So you can again use this image and you can create another container. So the actual containers gets created when you run the command. I'll show the command, from the image it runs. So remember, there are three things. One is first the file, the manifest file, which says that what you need, image, from that he creates an image, and from that image you create the Docker containers, right? So in my this one here, if you see here in this web application 2, I have already created a Docker file. So I kept it ready for you guys, right? So I'll go here, and also let us quickly look here what is happening. Okay, it's still getting installed, so we will wait for it. Okay, fine. It happen at the side. So you will see here when at my solution level, this is my SLN file. I have a file here called as Docker file. Now remember that this file name has to be exactly like this, Docker file, without any extension. It is not dockerfile.txt. It is not dockerfile.json. It's just Docker file, right? So I'm going to go and open this, open with Notepad. And there it is. If you look at this Docker file, at this moment, I'm using .NET 3.1. So the first thing, what I say out here, I'm going to go and snip this up and explain you every part of the code, right? So here it is. Once this code is explained, I'll come to everyone, right, for the questions. So here it is. This first part out here does the build. It does the build. Remember, what I want to do is that, one is what I can do is I can build in my Visual Studio. I can build in my Visual Studio and publish it, and I will say just run. Another is I'll give him the source code. I'm just taking it one step ahead. Give him the source code, let him build it, let him do everything, and let him deploy it. So I've just taken it one step up, right? You can remove some of these steps and say that no, like I just want to go and publish. I don't want to go and build into the production server. Build I will do in my build machine. That is up to you, but I want to just show you the holistic picture. So this section is build, this section is publish, and this section is where it actually starts running, right? So if you see out here, what am I doing? First, step one, again, let me go and do a snip. So remember, there are three sections out there for your understanding. And now you must be wondering, sir, like, do I have to know all these syntaxes like this from this working directory? No, you don't have to, right? What you can do is that you can go and you can search on Docker Hub. For example, you'll say, okay, my application needs MVC5 SQL Server. There are files written out there, Docker files written out there. You have to just take that and create an image, right? So if you go out here in the Docker Hub, right? So for example, you'll say, I need a Docker file. So Google, use your Googling capabilities with let's say SQL Server. Okay, so you will see here, compose an ASP.NET Core with docs.docker. So, well, where is the Docker Hub? I don't want to really go into documentation, Docker Hub. I used to take a lot of things from here. So if you go out here, you will find some ready-made codes, which you can use. For example, you can see here it is saying Docker pull SQL Server. So you can know that, okay, this is for SQL Server, right? So that then we come to know, okay, this is how you set your SA password, right? So you will find that there are Docker files, ready-made files with, let me search like this, MVC core with SQL Server. Anything out there like that? ASP.NET Docker file with MVC core. So this hubs.docker has a lot of samples. Huh? What is this? Oh, these are single syntaxes. Guys, okay, here it is, Docker file. Yeah, that's a Docker file. So that's one Docker file which you can go and you can have a look. What is this? Windows Server, this is here, right? Let me look at this Docker. So remember that there are a lot of Docker files out there which have been created now. Oh, this is bad. I won't download such Docker files. This is something, right? So guys, please go ahead and Google. At this moment, I really don't know upfront, what the link is, but this file, what you see out there, I've definitely copied from online. I did not create it myself. So I want to just make sure that you know that you don't have to learn all of these commands, right? But you have to know what these commands are doing, okay? So the first command out here, this one, in .NET Core, if you want to build .NET, there are two things. You need SDK and you need runtime, right? If you go to your .NET Core, if you ever go to your .NET Core download, you will find that, just quickly, for everyone's understanding, you get an SDK. All .NET frameworks have an SDK. .NET 5.0 is out. .NET 5.0 is there, right? And so you have an SDK for development, for building, and .NET runtime for running on the production, right? So this first syntax out here says, because we want to do the build, right? So go ahead and from this link, go and download the SDK, right? Change your working directory. This working directory says that your current working directory is web application 2. Why you are changing it? At this moment, my Docker file is in the SLN file, SLN folder. Please understand, my Docker file is here in SLN. So I have to go into web application 2 and get the chproj file. Then only I can do .NET build, right? So this is like saying change directory and go into web application 2, and over there say run .NET restore. This run .NET restore, what it will do, it will take the chproj file and bring all the .NET Nugget packages, right? After that, I'm saying here .NET publish, right? Publish it to the output directory. So this is the publish command, right? So .NET restore, .NET publish, and after that, now we need to go and run it. We need to host it, right? So now we need the runtime. So you can see this is getting the runtime. And I'm changing the directory to web application 2 because it has the output folder, right? So from the output folder, copy from the output folder to the main directory, current directory out here. Some of these commands, you don't need it, guys. I'm just shuffling from directory to directory. You can make it very clean if you want it, right? So he's just saying, because when we do a publish, we actually publish to the out folder. So when .NET, this publish works, it actually published to the out folder. Look at this name, out. So from there he copied, and then he said, to the .NET framework, your entry point to the DLL is web application 12. And this goes and this runs your MVC core application on some local host 80 port or 81 port. We'll figure that out, how the port is, right? Now remember that at this moment, you must also be wondering that, sir, how does it run without IIS? No, for .NET Core, we have something called as Kestrel. So that's why it will run inside Kestrel. Now, if you want IIS as well inside this, again, you will have one more from syntax at the top. From this, get some IIS. And then here, the things will be very difficult. You will create a virtual directory. You will go and you will publish into that, right? So I will not go into that code. That's a big one, right? But here it is the simple way. Install it and it is done, right? So this is a basic syntax out here. So from this file now, he will go and he will create an image. And from that image, you can create container 1, you can create running container 2, container 3, and so on, right? That's what the next thing is. I will put the questions out here, and let us again go back and see what is happening. Installation succeeded, but you need to go and restart Windows. Let us do it. Let's restart Windows, right? Fine. And until it restarts, I will go and see the questions. So, okay, right. So is it possible to move Docker image from one VM server to another VM server? Absolutely. I think Murli has answered it. You can go and you can publish it to Azure registry. You can go and you can publish to GitHub. You can go and you can publish it to anything what you want, like wherever there is a file storage you have, and you can get it. It's a file, right? Is it so? Let's see. Why do we need multiple models like Docker, Arcs, and Azure Service Bus? Okay, so let me talk about this. So all of these three things are different. Actually, they are very, very different, right? So let me go and let me paste it here. I'm sorry. Okay. Docker, I'm talking. Docker does not belong to Microsoft, right? Docker does not belong to Microsoft at all, right? First thing. If you see here, there is nothing Microsoft other than the Windows operating system. This UX out here, which is out here, is the for Kubernetes. Now what happens is Kubernetes is out of scope at this moment, but we have a video on Kubernetes. I'm sorry, guys, getting tough. Okay. Now, let's say you have a lot of containers, right? You say, oh, like container 1, container 2, container 3, container 4, and you want to start managing them. You start him, you shut him down, you start him, you shut him down. So you want some kind of a management layer at the top saying that, can you do things? That's what Kubernetes does, right? If you want Kubernetes on Azure, then that is UX, Azure Kubernetes Services. That's what UX is. So Kubernetes is very different from this. Azure Service Bus is Microsoft's Docker. Microsoft's answer to Docker product. Very costly. I don't like it. Service bus. No, hang on. Azure Service Bus is different. There's nothing to do with Docker. I'm sorry. We have, I'm sorry. What does that mean? Not Service Bus. Service Bus is different. Service Bus is related to things. We had, you're talking about this Service Bus? No. Sorry. No, this Service Bus, if you see this Service Bus, that is different. Now, this Service Bus has nothing to do with Docker or either this. But if you just, the Service Bus is not related really directly as a Docker or something, right? Very quickly, what I would suggest is the Microsoft answer to Docker is your Azure Fabric. I'm sorry, I read it as Fabric, right? This Azure Fabric is like the Docker, but it is all hosted on Azure. But I don't like Azure Fabric because of its cost. And Docker, it has gone way beyond Azure Fabric. I hope that one day Azure Fabric will catch up there, and then it will. Service Bus is related to queues. So no, there is no direct relation. So all the three keywords are very different. Right? Yeah. Service Fabric, I'm sorry. So many things, guys, in my head, like I can't tell you. Right? Yeah, so if you have IIS and Kestrel, yes, then IIS becomes a front-end proxy. It will hit IIS and that will go to this one. What is Docker Desktop? I'll show that money. Docker Desktop is to just go and do monitoring. So here it is, guys. Let us go ahead. Our virtual machine has been started, I think so. Let's go to our Windows Server and let's do an RDP. We have so less attendance to this class. We have this, I don't know, this training is useful, right? Why do we have so much less attendance? Remember, guys, getting this training of Docker, etc. If you try to go and search online, live trainings I'm talking about is difficult. So I don't know why people don't take advantage of this subscription. You have to just come 1 hour or 2 hours in a week, not more than that. Right, so here it is. So you can see that Docker Desktop, which is installed out there. Let me go and start it. Right, so there it is. Fail to initialize. Wow. Why? You can see down, guys, it is saying Linux container Hyper-V backend starting. I don't want to start Linux. So what I can do is, let me go and switch to Windows. Switch to Windows container. I would like to go and switch to Windows container. I don't want Linux container. I tell you that today's demo is completely focused around Windows, right? So there it is, Docker container on Windows. It is starting. I think it is running. So how do you know that Docker container is running? Go to CMD, command prompt. Let me make the fonts bigger. And we can just fire Docker version, I think. So now there are some Docker commands which you should know, and that can make your life easy. Oh, there it is at the back end. That is the Docker management, the Docker desktop, what you have, right? So it is saying it is running out here, but just let me check. So that Docker version, good. Docker Community Edition is running on our machine, right? Now inside this, we have to go and create a container with ASP.NET Core and MVC Core, .NET 3.1, right? So I'm going to go and copy the code now to this server out here. So we have source code. I've explained you the file. All this is done, right? So guys, let us go ahead, open folder in File Explorer, and let us copy this complete folder out there. Remember, my chproj file is on the SLN folder, on the where the SLN file is. Please note. So I'll close all this. I will go and copy web application 2. And now small things out here when you're working with Azure. In this PC, you will find that you are given some hard drives, right? This is a temporary storage. I did not buy it out. So if I go and paste something out here, I will have a problem, right? So if I restart my virtual machine, that is gone, right? This is the fixed one. So I will go and I will paste it out here, paste that whole thing out there, right? This is the installation part, very easy. The only thing you should worry about is that your operating system should have Hyper-V or virtualization enabled, and Docker is a breeze, right? But now coming to the coming to the other part now, commands. You need to know some basic commands of Docker. So I'll go and I'll open a file out here where some basic commands of Docker has to be known, right? Oh, the Docker ignore file. I did not discuss about this. We also need a Docker ignore file. I did not create one in this demo. What this Docker ignore file does is it ignores a lot of things. And when you're doing a Docker build, or when you're actually going and creating an image, so he tries to ignore these files. For example, you want to ignore some JavaScript files, you want to ignore some node underscore modules, right? So it helps you to ignore things. I have not done at this moment anything. The first command which you should know is, you should know 3 or 4 commands to start with. My today's lecture here goal is to get you started with Docker, know what to install, right? So 2-3 commands. First is you need to go and build an image. Remember I said you have this Docker file already. From this Docker file, you have to go and create an image. So the command for that is docker build -t and image name, right? So I'm going to go out here. Now you can see here, this is my web application 2. So wherever is your Docker file, at this moment, the Docker file is in C web application 2. You will go to that folder, right? You will go to that folder, cd, control V, right? And in this folder, you will say that command of Docker. So I'll just type it out, docker build. Remember guys, you don't have to know these commands. You don't have to bite it. You have to know first I create an image, then I create an instance, right? So docker build, I want to go and create the image -t, and let's give the image as MVC code image, right? And the file is in the current directory, that dot. Don't miss that dot. Dot means current directory. In case if it's in the top directory, then it's a /up, /down directory, or you have to give the some path, over there, right? So fine, at this moment, just in the current directory, and I say enter. Now what this will do is, this Docker image will do is, Docker build will do is, we will go into that file, right? So what happened? It will go into that file and it will start downloading those SDKs, those runtime. So you can see first thing is downloading that SDK. Remember, this is line number 1 of 11, 1 of 12, so there are 12 syntaxes, 12 lines, what we have written in our Docker file. All of this will get downloaded and installed, right? So guys, until this is all happening, right, let me go and see the questions. As I've told that this demo is quite big, right? Yeah, okay, so let's see that. Last minute, okay, like actually, yes, that can be one of the questions, right? Yeah, Sunday also. See, why we take lectures on Sunday, because a lot of people on Monday till Friday, they work till 8 p.m. So we don't know when to take the trainings, right? Okay. Why do we need to move the complete solution? Yeah, absolutely. It's very good from Rajesh, Rajshekhar sir here. I have shown this demo with the build and everything. You can just say .NET run. I again say, you can create a file. Because I wanted to show you that you can do literally everything with Docker, right? So please note, you don't have to have the full thing out here. What you can do is, you can just go and say that what is your working directory where your complete build is, releases, and you can go and delete all of this thing here. No problem, only this much. And if your working directory is current, don't even have to give this. Nothing copy. That's it. If wherever is your file, if you say Docker create image, just go. But in this folder, then ensure that all your DLLs, all your release folders. So you can just have these 2 lines out here. My goal of showing all the other lines is so that you know that yes, you can do a lot of other things with the Docker file, right? Absolutely, I agree. Mostly when you go to production, you won't be doing all this, right? So can we build Docker file from my current machine? No, Docker file builds an image. So Docker file you have to write down or you have to get something ready-made from wherever it is, right? No, from a Windows 10, I don't know if there is an automated tool out there which creates a Docker file. I'm not aware of it. Actually, what you know, if you are too hesitant about it, actually what I've seen is this is a small. Remember, this is not an image which gets created. The Docker file is to tell that what you use in your project. So it cannot be automated really. But very quickly, if you are very skeptic about saying that this Docker file is very irritating, or must be you want to at least get started with some template. If you want that, what you can do is when you create an MVC core project out here or MVC5 project, there is a small option down out there saying Docker. So I don't know if you've ever seen it. So if you see out here, you can see that there is this enable Docker support for Windows. If you do this, he will create a ready-made Docker file, which I don't like personally. Because you need to do customization, right? Change directory from here to here, and you want to install sometimes that day I was installing RabbitMQ. So for RabbitMQ, what I need to do, but you know what? Looking at your solution, it does create a Docker file, so where you can start with. But you can't say that on my machine, from my machine, create a Docker file. I'm not aware of that. Where is the Docker file? Show all files. There it is, Docker file. So this is a ready-made Docker file, created it. It's almost same, and you can see almost same, but some more differences out there in terms of, you can see there are some extra commands out here called as expose. This expose says that you want to go and run your application on 80 port on, so expose says that there are 2 expose out here, 80 and 443. So what it says is that your host machine will be 80. So somebody who will hit your host machine, he will hit into 80 port, but your Docker is running on 443. So external host port map to internal one, right? So there is an expose command. The question which I will be covering later on in the AZ question is, it also has an expose also, right? But expose is not needed. Like I'll tell you why it is not needed, right? So good guys, so here it is. It's all here. Let's hope that all the installations have happened. Oh, it is still happening. Oh, there it is. You can see image has been created. Very good. Right. So that is good to see, right? Fine. So no red colors, nothing. So that means things are good. Now, if you want to go and see that, okay, what are my images all in my in this thing out here, you can say Docker images, and you can come to know that what your images are. You can see here one image what he has created is MVC core image. Another one, he has taken the image of SDK and ASP.NET also. Remember, he has copied from online. So you can see that everyone out there, Microsoft or Oracle, they have started creating Docker images. They have started creating Docker images, please note. Okay, now this is the image. It is not a running instance. So I want to go and start running an instance, right? So to run an instance, you will say Docker run. So I'm going to go and so we have, okay, I can just type it out. Guys, today we'll again extend this class for 10-15 minutes more. As I've told, the demo is extremely big, so ACR was not possible. Next lecture we'll do ACR as well, right? So I will go and I'll start this command here. So Docker run -e -port -p for the port. So the external port is 8080 and the internal Docker port is 80, right? What is the image name? Our image name was, what was it? MVC, forgot. Goodness. MVC core image, okay. So weak memory. I have a very, very weak memory. So 8080:80. The name of the image is MVC core image. You know, sometimes once you do things yourself, once you do it hands-on, right? So using this MVC core image, I want to go and run on MVC core instance 1. Then I can create from the same image instance 2, right? So I will go and I will create an, oh, sorry. First is the instance name. I'm so sorry. First is the instance name and then is the image name. MVC core image. I'm sorry. Hey, what? Oh, there it is. Okay, it's running. Fine. So I'll just move this up. So you can see here, it has created an instance and running. So we can go to the Docker now. And we'll just go to the Docker dashboard to see that is this instance installed. Must be I can go and I can run some more instances. Like I can say, okay, how about creating one more instance too? So you can see one container, the same image. That image is like a Xerox machine now. One, container 2, container 3, right? So there you can see created. It has a red sign. I don't know why, but you can see there is an image out here. You can use this dashboard. I like to use the command prompt to just show that, I'm a techie guy, but you can always use the dashboard out here. I don't know why this is red out here. We'll check that. But you can see at the top it is green, or must be it is just getting installed now, right? So this is MVC core image 1. I can go and I can browse this. So open this in browser. I hate Internet Explorer, so I'll go to Chrome out here. And I should see my localhost running, ASP.NET Core running. So this is one instance out here. And there is another instance out here. Okay, it has to be started. Fine, let me start it. Fail to create on the network NAT specified port already exists. Absolutely. Nonsense. Remember? Yep. Somebody is answering that for me. Same port. Yeah, the image, the Docker image, yes, that's possible. Yes, absolutely. Murli, the Docker image is there. There is a Windows 10 Docker image as well. Yes, it is. But see, if you are going to create a Windows 10 Docker image, it is better to create a virtual machine. Yes, that's absolutely right, because I was on the same port, right? So I'll not show this demo, but the point is that I need to go and change the port out here. So if I make this, let me do that, 8081. And what I can do is I can just delete this thing from here, delete. Okay. 8081 port. Okay, there it is. Okay, there it is, it's running. You know what? It's not going to open in the browser. And I will not tell you why. I'm not expecting it to open, and I don't like Internet Explorer. It just goes to msn.com. I don't know. They're still marketing msn.com for their whole life. God, let's close this. Works, it doesn't. Again, going to MSN. I don't understand. Where is my browser? Chrome. Okay, here it is. This will not work, right? I will leave it as a homework. Why it did not work? I will not say the answer out here. I know that it will not work, right? I will leave it as a homework that why did my second instance, even though it is running, it is all up there, why it is not running. And this is very specific to Azure. I'm giving you a hint as well, right? So guys, any questions on today's demo, right? Let me know any questions on today's demo. Yeah. You can't build a Docker file from your current image, but as like Murli said, you can create an image directly, a Docker image. There are ready-made Docker images. Remember when you write from mcr/image1, Microsoft has created a repository of images which you can use, right? Okay. No, port is open, all is there, 8081 port, all is open, right? You can go and watch my video of the image is registered, everything out there. Just go and watch my video of Docker on Azure and you will come to know the answer, right? So please go on. No, you don't have to register the image. Image is all registered, right? From the same image, you can see, look at this, it's all green. MVC core image, instance 1, MVC core image, instance 2. So image is all registered. If you say Docker images, it's image is a template. Not really, it has nothing to do with the instance. So that is my image, right? Right. So just quick, what is ACR now? Let me talk about what is ACR, right? Azure Container Registry. Now think about it. You want to go and take this MVC core image and host it somewhere, right? So that, tomorrow somebody, you want to go somewhere and say like, okay, go ahead, get the image from GitHub/MVC core image, get it from there. Once you created an image, and let's say for some reason it gets deleted, you don't want to do that. So you want to take this image file and host it on somewhere. So in ACR, this Azure Container Registry, what it does is you can host your image into the ACR, and then once it is registered in the ACR in the repository, you start your Docker and you say AZ commands. We'll go into that in the next class. AZ command, go to this container, get the thing. I don't have to do all this. Once the image is made, I just want to reuse it again and again, right? For example, if you say my production server consists of this, you make the image once, you post it to Azure ACR, your Azure Container Registry, and you keep getting it from that. So that's what is the use of ACR. We'll do that in the next class, not today. No, virtualization is all enabled, Chandrakant. Remember that my first website is running. This is my first website. This runs. So if you open in browser, this runs. Look at this. This runs, but the same thing, the next instance is not running. So the ports are all there, but this is not running. It's related to Azure IP address. Guys, see the video. So, okay. Okay, there was something else. On why we have an Azure Service Fabric. As I've said, that Azure Fabric we have. Don't say Azure Service Fabric. So Azure Fabric is nothing but like Docker. So online, it's Microsoft product like Docker, where you can go and you can host an VM, you can register Linux container and start doing virtualization. Okay. No, Azure Resource Manager is different. Azure Resource Manager is different. Azure Resource Manager is only grouping. So Azure Fabric is this. Okay, let me show you. I would suggest to go and watch this video, but for now, where is Azure Fabric video? Here it is, 90 minutes ago. And this is what is Azure Fabric. I will very quickly, because I don't know why a lot of people are asking about Azure Fabric. Kind of a product I've just put it out there, but it's Docker is there, free one, and so here it is. In Fabric, it's same like Docker, but it is on Azure. You want to go and run an accounting application, an HR application in different containers. The way I was doing in Azure, right? So for that, you need a management layer. You want to say that, okay, go tick, 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 tick. 4 nodes started, deploy in this node, have a cluster, have security, right? And so on, right? So that's what Azure Fabric is. So I don't know if, look at it. This is Azure Fabric. I'm just showing you the screenshot. Please see the video. So you have different nodes out here. You say, I want to go and deploy on this node. I want to go and restart this node. So it is like clusters of node with, your VMs running inside it, right? So that is what is Azure Fabric. So, and what I did in that Azure Fabric is I hosted my application. So I created this application of, I think, something, and then I said right click and I started hosting it, right? Now here what I did, I said like, I fired these commands, right? To host it, Docker run, Docker this, here is through Visual Studio. Right click, given the XML file, say deploy. So Microsoft way of doing containerization, and this is the open source way of doing it, Docker way of doing it, right? Okay, guys, so thank you very much. It's almost 9 o'clock. Let us not try to, okay. Hey, questions. Let us look into questions now. Let us see how many guys can answer this question, right? Okay, so here is a question which a lot of my students had asked, that in AZ204, we get a Docker question and we are not able to answer it. We have no idea what that question is, right? Now with this demo, what I've shown here, you should be able to answer this question, right? You plan to create a Docker image that runs ASP.NET Core application the way we did now, right? Named Contoso app. You have a setup script there called a setup script PowerShell 1, PS1. You need to create a Docker file document that needs the following thing. First thing, Docker file means the way we had Docker file, remember, from this. What it should do is it should call up that script, right? And it should run Contoso app.dll when the container starts. So if you remember in our in our Docker file. This is the Docker file. So the question, what he's saying is that go and run PowerShell and then run web application DLL when the container starts, right? So what is the question? So the Docker file must be created where the Contoso app DLL is, right, and so on. Which 4 commands will you use in your file to do it, right? So here are the commands. So what commands you will use to fire? Remember, he wants to run a PowerShell file and he wants to then run the DLL. I again repeat that question, but he wants it in the Docker file. He wants to call up the PowerShell file first and then run the Contoso app, right? So now, first thing, how will be the sequence? You will first need a from. Remember our syntax? You will need a for from ASP.NET Core, because without this, you won't be able to do your build or right. This question is bit tricky, because in this question, what he said is which 4 commands you will fire. Now, for example, you will see the commands here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. So that means that 2 of the commands can be optional or we don't need it. So we just have to use the 4 commands, right? Fine. So again, that's that, because for example, expose. Remember I talked about expose. Expose is needed to to expose the port. Now, I can provide this by using that Docker image or Docker run. When I say Docker run, I can provide the ports at that time. So this is not really optional. So one is I'm going to exclude this from the answer because I need to select 1 to 4, right? Another one we'll see. So from this, okay, another one from this to one of them is true, right? So we need to exclude one of them. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Either this is true or either this is true, right? So that one we have to make a choice. So there are 6 choices as such. So first one is this, right? Second, in that question, he said that must be created in the same folder where the Contoso app is. So I think that this would be the second command which I will fire, work directory, right? And then I will say copy this // right? And then now comes that will you do a MD or will you do a run, right? Now, please note this. Now you would be thinking, if you remember, we had an entry point. So this is tricky. This is very tricky question. And this can only be answered by people who have worked with Docker. If you have not worked with Docker, you have not written a file, you will have no idea of the question, right? So you can see entry point, that was our syntax. But even this is also right. At the top, this is also right. This also says the same thing. This only defines the entry point. Please note, this only defines the entry point. This does not start it. So the answer is this one. This command I did not teach you in the class today. So run PowerShell this. So the sequence of the answers, first one is the from, second one is the working directory, third one I will copy, and fourth one this. This one, the entry point, this one, it defines the entry point. It does not start .NET application. He has said very quickly, run Contoso app.dll when the container starts. If you want to run it, then you have to take the CMD, right? Please verify the answer. It is possible I can be wrong, right? I would suggest to go and Google out there. I've seen wrong answers, like people saying entry point, because a lot of people write entry point, right? But like when I talked with some of the MVPs, they said that CMD is also right. So please go ahead and have a look at this question, right? But I hope at least you are now understanding this question, because one of the things what people have said me is that we didn't even understand the Docker question. So I felt very bad. And I wanted to just ensure that we cover Docker, we cover the questions around it. Okay. So guys, that brings us to the end of today's session.